become such a huge popular movie later down the track if they actually would have put aside their differences and possibly egos as well to make sequels. I mean, they would have had to have done, right?
Part 2. Scrapped ideas and concepts. So there are several concepts and scenes that were going to be filmed for Flash Gordon, or maybe even were filmed but were dropped. To me, the most baffling and bizarre deleted scene would have seen the Dale character turn into a spider. Yeah, it was a dream sequence, and Dale actress Melody Anderson had spent 6 hours in the makeup chair getting herself made up to look like a horrific spider creature, which included a giant spider head which weighed 20 pounds. And literally after being made up, director Mike Hodges felt that there was just no place in the movie to feature this bizarre spider transformation scene. It almost sounds like someone in the production randomly got the idea of Dale turning into a spider and commissioned for that scene to be shot, but didn't take into account the fact that there pretty much was nowhere in the movie to place this scene, which I guess goes back to the communication difficulties of this production. In the original script, after Flash Gordon is executed, a distressed Dale yells out that Ming is merciless, and Ming likes this sentiment, which is where his title, Ming the Merciless, comes from. Yeah, look, I don't have any tears that was scrapped, as despite this movie, even that sounds a little too cheesy and goofy. In the original script, when Ming uses his ring on Dale and puts her into a trance-like state of arousal, sorry, I couldn't think of a better way to describe this, it's explained that Dale is having erotic visions of being on a picnic with Ming in the 1920s, where I guess they skip the sandwiches and go straight for dessert, if you know what I mean. IMDb adds that in the original script, there was to be a Tiger Man character who assists Flash on his adventure. Clytus is psychic, and Ming also has his own army of Amazon warriors. And the movie's climax even ends with a sword fight between Flash and Ming, something that was lacking in the final film. There are also claims that it was originally intended for Freddie Mercury to feature in the movie. Now, I have no idea who he would have played. I don't know, maybe a Hawkman. Or maybe he just would have turned up as himself, as Freddie. Either way, that cameo would have been pretty cool, and Freddie Mercury and Queen still provide a rocking soundtrack. And at that time, Mercury would frequently wear a Flash Gordon t-shirt during Queen concerts, where he would even bring Darth Vader into the mix and sit on his shoulders, to which George Lucas then got involved and said, "Oh no, buddy, no more using my character for your show, thank you very much." According to Peter Weingart, who played Clytus, in the last scene where we see someone pick up Ming's ring, that hand that was picking up the ring was the Clytus character, which is odd as seemingly the character did die. But nope, in the sequel, the Clytus character was to return, where no doubt Flash would have had to have stopped this dickhead yet again. I always assumed that it was Ming himself who collected the ring, but I guess not. It was Clytus. There are versions of the movie that would go on to have some edits made to them. Some VHS copies didn't feature the scene where Dale blasts the guards, thus taking away the character's one true badass scene. Some Laserdisc versions didn't feature the young woodsman who fails the initiation and is subsequently killed. Seeing Ming's face as the aeroplane gets attacked at the start of the movie is often removed from certain cuts. And strangely, in certain TV broadcasts of Flash Gordon, Richard O'Brien's woodsman character has been completely removed. And yes, growing up as a kid, I had a videotape recording of Flash Gordon from a TV broadcast, and well, yeah, Richard O'Brien was nowhere to be seen. And in addition to that, I can remember watching the DVD for the first time and being like, oh, wait a minute, Riff Raff is in this? Since when? There are even some scrapped costumes, like this rare movie poster where we see Flash Gordon in these green shorts and boots. Well, originally I thought this was some artist's interpretation. But nope, there's some behind-the-scenes photos of Flash Gordon wearing these shorts and boots. I guess this was a costume test, I don't know. Or maybe this is what Flash Gordon was wearing when he was executed. But I always thought those shorts were black.
Okay, look, maybe things have just gone too far. When it's getting to the stage where I'm having to talk about in great detail Flash Gordon's little leather shorts, yeah, we've probably gone too far.
Flash Gordon's shorts aren't the only costume anomaly that's going on here. There's this other Flash Gordon costume which, once again, features shorts and wasn't used. I actually think it makes sense to try and introduce shorts as the character did frequently wear shorts in the past. Then there's this behind-the-scenes photo where we see Clytus and Aora. Only Clytus's robes aren't black, but white, which looks really weird. Once again, is this a costume test or a deleted scene? Then there's this photo of Prince Baron with two female woodsmen, despite the fact that in the actual movie we don't see any female woodsmen. Then there's this publicity still of Flash, Dale and Aora. Once again, Flash is wearing a costume never seen in the movie. And I'm guessing this photo was taken quite early on in the production, as I've got a feeling this also might have been a hair dye colour test too, as Flash's hair actually looks red. And finally, this rare poster where Flash Gordon is wearing a cape. And what's equally baffling is this image of Flash wearing a cape was reused for the Australian DVD. Most confusing indeed. As well as this movie poster where they made Flash Gordon look like He-Man from the Masters of the Universe movie. Only this poster predates that. So did the Masters of the Universe movie rip off this poster? You decide. Part 3. The sex-crazed novelization. Strap in, guys. Things are about to get sticky. So it's here we get to the novelization of Flash Gordon, which was written by author Byron Cover, who would also write for TV, including Transformers and The Real Ghostbusters, as well as a Buffy the Vampire Slayer novel. I also love how the book's cover proudly declares that this is the only book of the movie. So yeah, no getting this Flash Gordon novelization mixed up with all those other Flash Gordon novelizations. Puh. Now, often when a movie gets a novelization made about it, the novel tends to be more based on the original script, unless the author has taken certain creative liberties. But usually it is a case of the author is working with an earlier version of the script. And if the Flash Gordon novel is anything to go by, then this version of Flash Gordon is definitely very horny. So much so, one reviewer on Amazon said that had this version been made, Flash Gordon definitely would have been rated R. As it was just so sex-crazed, it was more in line with the adult movie version, Flash Gordon. Despite all the double doses of sexiness added to the novel, it's actually a lot more serious than the movie, with most of the camp being removed. We explore more into who is Flash Gordon. We learn that Flash Gordon grew up in Alabama by his father, as his mother passed away during childbirth. And we also learn that even at a young age, he was interested in football, and he didn't have a southern accent thanks to listening to sport broadcasts on the radio, namely sports commentators. We also learn more about the touchdown that made Flash famous, as well as Flash being more spiritual and caring a great deal about liberal issues. In fact, in a brilliant online article about the book called Glorious Trash, the article's author, Joe Kenny, explains that Flash Gordon is more of a 1960s hippie character than he is a 1980s one, as he's into psychedelics and meditation, and speaks of his displeasure with sexist men and Nixon, as well as other issues, to the point where Dale herself refers to him as, quote, such a liberal, in which this article refers to Flash as a snowflake. So, I guess what Kenny is saying here is that Flash Gordon in the Flash Gordon novelization was woke. Before woke was even woking. At least I guess that's what he's saying. Not that I'm saying there's anything wrong with that, that's just what I'm interpreting. Regardless, Flash Gordon in the book really does have a sense of justice and doing the right thing, and cares about social and political issues. In fact, Gordon was on his trip at the start of the movie to find spiritual awareness after his huge football victory. Oh, and remember how Flash asked Dale what was she doing on her trip? To which she said she was trying to get her head together. Well, we don't actually really know what that means. It's never really revealed what she actually meant by that. But in the book, we learn that Dale has taken time off from her boyfriend, who was into group sex, and she really couldn't get into it. Wow. Yeah, that's my 43-year-old mystery solved. We also learn, though, during her trip, she had several intimate encounters with local country boys. Okay, so is she into, lots of partners, or isn't she? I'm confused. In the book, we also learn that when Ming meditates, he can alter and manipulate the cosmos at his own will, which actually makes the character more frightening. And disturbingly, it's suggested in the book that Ming and Aora have an intimate relationship. Ugh, yuck. And in the scene where Flash sort of proposes to Dale by telling her, "We'll tell our kids someday," even though it's all really sweet and cheesy in the movie, I mean, come on. These characters have only just met. At least go out for a coffee and a wagon wheel first. In the book, though, after Flash says, "We'll tell our kids someday," Dale then thinks to herself, quote, "Should I tell them about my operation?" I almost wonder if this is kind of mocking just how cheesy and ridiculous that scene was, in the sense that these two characters literally know nothing about each other. There does seem to be some very unique differences between the movie and novelization, with the novel feeling like some weird and strange anomaly which goes into, well, let's just say, very interesting directions. To conclude, I love the final film we got, because it is very cheesy and it's camp, and that just adds to its fun factor, in my opinion. So I wouldn't change anything about the movie. Not one line! No, not one! And you know what? It didn't need subplots of awkward group sex. It is fine the way that it is, and there are some things you just don't need to know. And I think that we, the viewer, can figure out everything we need to know just fine. Although, it is always interesting to go back and explore abandoned and alternative ideas, to see what movies that we cherish, like Flash Gordon, could have been like.
I think that Flash Gordon is an imperfect movie, but it's those imperfections that make it the great and spectacular movie that it is. Go on then, go be free.